digitization. We are having an awesome panel of guests who would be talking about their experiences, the activities they are doing, and what specifically related to Africa is on their platter. We would like to go ahead and have initial introduction from Vanessa. Vanessa, floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all. This is such a great pleasure, and I was thinking that we have such insight and experience on this panel. A couple thoughts from where I'm sitting. For the last 18 years, I've been in Africa working from farm level to governments to private sector. And we've seen everything from the first cell phones being delivered in Mali when people stood in line. I remember myself stood in line overnight for 2 days waiting for a cell phone, and that wasn't so long ago. And today with COVID, we're relying on digitization for everything from decisions on governments, on availability of food supply, on locust invasions, as you all know, on the continent. So the technology has come so far, blockchains to increase cross-border trade, and yet we also see such gaps between the opportunities and those who really can use and need the technology. So everything that our team has been doing is about increasing the technology utilization for decision makers. We're working in 15 African countries where, as you know, ministries are relying on 2-3-year-old data in some cases. They're having to make decisions based on phone calls and text messages and WhatsApps. We know that in agripreneurs and agro-dealers in villages, managing distribution also through text messages and WhatsApp, with very limited resources on the other side. And still yet banks are able, as you all know, to lend based on cash flow transactions that they can actually extend financing. Just about 2 months ago, as a part of our annual summit, we were actually convening more than 3,600 private sector and public sector participants in a digital virtual platform to start doing investment mobilization. And it's something that I think nobody thought would happen even 5 years ago, which is to see SMEs feel confident enough to present their pitches for investment mobilization virtually, and investors to actually engage virtually through these platforms and look at businesses that they're eager to invest in. So the 17 governments which participated actually presented over $7 billion of investment opportunities, and not a single one of those investment opportunities didn't have a digital component. Things have really changed. And of the SMEs who presented, obviously we're looking at food processing and supply chain improvements, but most of them are still using antiquated digital technologies and platforms. And so I think it's really, today, the technology has advanced, but the scaling isn't at the level that technology is. And I know this is the case in many environments. I was fortunate to be in France over the summer, and in a rural France, even there, the technology uptake is much lower than people even want to admit. So I don't think it's about developing countries per se. It's about real-time solutions which fit the reality and the complexity of the needs of farmers as well as businesses. My favorite thing that we have seen, of course, is precision farming, which is the ultimate technology adaptation, right? Knowing exactly what the soil type is, exactly the micro dosing of nutrients. California Almond Board, I think, is at the top notch of precision farming. We've been working with Volcani and Startup Nation from Israel on some of the most high-tech digital ag that you can imagine. But in the end, right now, the millions and tens of hundreds of millions of smallholder farmers who are really food insecure are not actually having access to these great technologies. So that's the area that we continue to be focused on. We think that it's the actual hidden middle, as those of you who have seen some of our reports have been documenting the hidden middle of the SMEs across Africa. It's not that they're not there, they're there and they're contributing incredibly. And we think that agriculture leapfrogging forward into the transformation that we want to see with the 2030 SDGs. And through the Food Systems Summit, which is coming in 2021, where we know that the food systems have to change from farming all the way through food processing. We need healthier people, we need more biodiversity. We also, of course, want to see more equity across the supply chains, and digitization is obviously what we see as the way forward. So I'm speaking really on behalf of those who aren't using the optimal digitization yet, and how we can get it extended through partnerships and through our various platforms for more increased accessibility and optimization of these phenomenal tools which are available. So I think those are my opening remarks, and it's a great pleasure to be with such a fantastic panel today. Back over to you, Deepak.
Thanks, Vanessa. Like, you have summarized the very, very critical issues. And as you rightly mentioned, that digital is part of most of the initiative when we talk about whether it is Europe, America, or even developing world like Africa. Challenge is definitely about data. So we are having a guest actually who is working for a long time in ensuring that open data can be used for agriculture. So Andre, I go next with you and understand a little bit about how open data initiatives and aggregation of the data, which is one of the critical challenges, even whether it is about the supply chain traceability or even the precision agriculture. So please do share your experiences and the great work you are doing. Over to you, Andre.
Yeah, thank you very much. That took place on the G8 and then G7 some years ago, where it was thought in order to stimulate agriculture or stimulate food availability, we'll need two very big challenge in terms of providing food. Let's establish some kind of entity whose mission will be problems to that technical team and have over 12. Yeah, I thought of sharing with you a little but then I thought I'll go beyond that, beyond the actual sensors of multiple kinds that are being used, but I'll go straight to the data. So to show nowadays.
So Andre, are you sharing a screen or something?
Do you see my presentation?
Not so far. Not so far. So Andre, are you able to share the screen? It's actually the fourth button. I think it seems we have lost Andre. Andre, can you hear me? So by the time we get Andre, so let's pull in Kunal. Are you there?
Yes, Deepak, I'm there.
Yeah. So sorry for this little bit of a network issue. So Kunal, we would like to understand, because you have been doing a lot of work across the developing world, especially Africa. So we would like to understand from Cropin how you see this going forward and how data-driven agriculture is future. Please go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Deepak. Before I get started, a quick introduction about what we do at Cropin. So we are basically an agtech company, and what we do is we basically provide digital solutions for agriculture stakeholders, which are institutions which are in the contract farming segment, seed segment, developmental segment, or banks or financial institutions, for them to engage very closely with the farmers and help them in terms of real-time actionable decision support system. I completely resonate, the earlier thoughts shared by Vanessa that there are millions of these smallholder farmers spread across different parts of the world, and especially in developing countries. And technology is the way forward where we can really engage them and solve the problem in a better manner. That's what has been the focus for us in the last 10 years. And what we have done is we have seen that how technology can be brought in to bring in this real use case and solving those particular problem statements. The first of the things we see is building a digital asset, farmers, where are they located, what is the land sizes, what crops they have been doing, and then create that asset which can be used for a lifetime for that particular farmer. And that's the first thing that we come and propose to institution which just get started on the digital journey. The second thing is that once you get onboarded and you have your partners, which is your farmers on the platform, the most important thing is to understand the needs of the farmer and try to give him that real-time solutions. And that can come in terms of understanding the different needs of the farmer. So when we do this project, we understand that out of all of the needs, what are the critical needs of the farmer? And when I am myself trying to be a farmer, I see that there are four important needs, right? The first need for a farmer is I need access to right advisories. And advisories could basically cover different elements about package of practices, pest and disease based recommendations. And in the coming times where climate change is a big problem, it is also about climate smart advisory, which can really help the farmer solve those basic problems. The second need of the farmer comes is access to finance, because the local money lenders or traders which finance the farmers are at a very high rate, and the institutional buyers are not able to access this farmer database so that they can come and finance. So through a digital platform, we try and solve the need of finance, bringing this transparency to the banks to lend to the farmer, and also opening up the data of the farmers so that they can get access to finance. The third thing that we see is the need of inputs. And when I talk about inputs, it's also about fertilizers, chemicals, seeds, implements, tractors, and things like that, so that they can get these right inputs at the right time on through a digital means, if that's possible. And the fourth is access to market. Once everything is all done right, the important thing is that the produce can reach the market, and you can have better institutional buyers to come and engage with the farmer. Then it basically becomes rewarding for the farmer to come and join your program. So end-to-end connection starts from understanding the farmer, digitizing the farmer, giving them access to right advisory, getting them access to finance, giving them access to inputs, and finally helping them connect to market so that they can increase their income opportunities coming out from agriculture. And this is what we exactly do from our platform, right? It's a holistic platform where we partner with institutions which are either developmental based, government institutions, private sectors, give them this particular platform so that they can engage with their stakeholders, which is the farmers, through their extension team, which can be field officers, extension officers, agropreneurs, and help them in terms of translating and taking their value to the end customers in that particular meaningful manner. In our journey, in Africa, we have done these programs. We have worked with either a development program which is focused on climate smart agriculture. For a farmer, the problem is, should I sow the seed when I see the first rain, or should I hold it for the next rain to come, right? And in climate smart agriculture, it talks about from sowing till harvesting, the time for sowing, the time for irrigation, the time for fertigation, the early warning pest and disease system, the right harvest windows for them to come and harvest, and things around that. And our learning in Africa has been diverse, from climate smart agriculture to traceability solutions, helping growers in Africa from Kenya, like customers like Flamingos or like others of them which are exporting into Europe, to expose these farmers into European markets and provide traceable food for them to consume. So, and then we're also working with institutions like telecom companies like Safaricom, where they are moving beyond just telecom service to getting into a value-added service for the farmer, which is, then can I help my farmers to be more productive because they are my customers? And in the rural areas, if I can help them access to finance and get them access to markets, then these becomes a long-term partner for us. So these are some of our experiences and work that we have done in different value chains. And from a technology perspective, what we have seen is smallholder farmers, the massive scale that they are in, and the massive variabilities that they go through, like different crops, different varieties, different conditions, different soil patterns. Technology is the only way where you can actually bring these things together and meaningfully solve the problem so that the farmers' end results can be achieved and the maximization of per acre value could be achieved. And that's what is the vision that we are carrying, and we are looking forward to partners which can bring in at least 20 million farmers in the next 3 years for us. Thank you so much,
That's
Deepak.
Yeah, that's awesome, Kunal. In fact, I also love this idea, because someone who has been part of telecom ecosystem before getting into agriculture, mobile is very, very central to solving problem of the small and marginal farmer. And your partnership and working with Safari Telecom is something which I believe would be template going forward in this industry. And that brings me to Michael, who is actually already trying to make mobile central to the farmers, sitting in from US while working across Africa. Michael, why don't you take it forward and make us understand the great work you are doing, trying to bring in mobile and making it a tool for the farmers.
Okay, thank you very much, Deepak. Thanks for inviting me here. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon to some of you. So I'd just like to just start by just picking up on Vanessa's point at the beginning. Back in 2008, or actually even before, from 2006-07, we partnered with Postbank in Uganda to build the first mobile banking platform, and then with Uganda Telecom in 2008 to build M-Sente, which roughly around the same time as M-Pesa was the first mobile money platform to be delivered pretty much anywhere in the world. And we were a little bit way ahead of our time, I don't think. And people were telling me, Michael, people don't even understand how to use a phone, and you're giving them banking on their phone. So, but by 2010, we had 1 million people using our system. Where there's a need, people will learn how to use this system. So the idea of technology in any sector for transformational purposes is very, very clear. What we've done over the last couple of years is we've really been our company at CTI. I don't know whether I'm trying to share a screen. I'm not sure if it's actually allowing me to share my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah, please.
You see my screen? Okay, so Life Grow, the Life Grow network is part of our overall program. So as you mentioned, Deepak, we're looking, our company, we're a social impact, we're a social enterprise company, and our focus is really kind of much more about looking at the individual people and looking how do we empower communities. Our tagline is empowered communities, stronger nations. And as you pointed out, the focal point, in our opinion, to empower people in their lives is the smartphone. So we actually launched our own smartphone in Uganda called Life Mobile. And around our smartphone, we've built different programs in health tech. We've created a very substantial digital health infrastructure. We've created something with the phones. We're doing financial inclusion, and we're also doing agriculture. But when we started in our agriculture, the focus wasn't to develop an application that worked. The focus was, how do we build agriculture that works? And then how do we make the technology fit? So we started off by building some model farms, and we're using, the volcanic concepts of drip irrigation, and we built several demo farms using drip irrigation and using, the pheromone traps to be able to go and, stop the cottle moth and the fruit fly problems, etc. And then from there, we actually started building our own farms, working with CBOs, community business organizations. So we're able to start engaging the local community.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay then.
Okay. So as you see, and then the idea, then as we evolved it, we started to build technology around the needs that we saw of the people, which is very similar to, to what we just heard before in terms of what people need. right? In terms of being able to have access to information, be able to speak to an agronomist, be able to create certifications for their, I mean, for example, in Uganda, every matoke, every pineapple, every mango, every papaya that leaves the country is organic. But, you know, barely a very small percentage of them are getting any sort of an organic certification because none of them can afford to get organic certification. So we're working with Ministry of Agriculture to be able to create a special certification for smallholder farmers by being able to identify those farmers as being organic using the technology platform. So the idea of our solution for the farmers using our smartphone or even just using other people's smartphone is this very comprehensive, as you guys have identified it. But what we're doing at CTI is we big believers in holistic ecosystem solutions. And you see over here the ability to do the tracking of the farmers. And if anybody wants to see this presentation in a bit more detail, it'll be my pleasure to share. But our focus has been, how do we build this out from the perspective of practical agriculture in Uganda and then beyond. And then we use technology to be able to partner. So we're very open to working with other technical people. We just found it a drop challenging so far. So we just end up building our own technology, but not because we're a technology company, just because we understand the needs of what we feel our people will help empower them. So we're excited to be here, excited to share our vision and what it is that we're doing, and we're looking for good collaborations as a result of this opportunity. So thank you, Deepak. Thank you, anybody who's listening, for joining us today, and thank you.
No, Michael, actually, I love what you are doing, and your passion is infectious, right? So keep doing the great work. And I also strongly believe we are living in a world which need multi-stakeholder approach. One company or two company cannot just solve the problems. We need multiple organization from different sector, from government organization, non-government organization, technology companies, input companies, output companies. Then only we'll be able to take care of the mess the agriculture today is in. Andre, is your network okay? So can we go back and have your slideshow? I'm so sorry for keeping you a little bit waiting. Andre, we cannot see your screen share. Is it me or others can see by any chance? Yes, Andre, you are live. Yeah, awesome.
I can't see the
Perfect.
Yeah, now it's
so I'll just dive straight into it.
Sure, please.
Okay, the starting point is, of course, we well know that there still needs to be a massive investment in terms of bringing especially the internet infrastructure up to the level it should be. Some people say about $3.7 trillion over the next decade, which are huge amounts. So before we all get discouraged, we also try to look, because in Godan we work at the policy level, at the technical, and on the field. So we try to look at what concretely can be done right now, having in mind that right now, more than 60% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa is smallholder farmers. 70% of all jobs in the agri-food system are held by women. We know that Africa has the potential to produce 3 times more food than what it does now. We know also that sub-Saharan Africa has the same average as the rest of the world, where in theory, accessible for 50% of the people living there. However, we find 10% are accessing it, in fact, because they find it too expensive or not reliable enough or other reasons. Now, the big picture. We're all glad to say, focusing on this in particular, that thanks to the MDGs that came before that, we managed to reduce hunger in the world quite significantly from between 2005 and 2014. However, what we don't talk about enough is what happened after. We see from 2014, and then the numbers started to grow again. Now, during the pandemic, there's a risk in 100 and 150 million more people could go back being hungry. So that means we would lose. We're on the risk of losing all the progress that was made for the last 20 years. So we have to do. Among the things that make it difficult in a political situation, position. These bar charts represent what happens to the production of these main crops if the temperature goes up by 1 or 4. So I'll just take 2 because that's the most likely scenario. We know that in Africa, if we have a 2 degrees global warming issue, it will have a minus 25% impact on the cultivation of maize. It will be affected about the same way U.S. maize too. And of course, if the temperature goes up to 3 or 4 degrees, then we're in a scenario. So that will not help us feed the world better. Because in the green is the activity level we need to have and generate versus the red, which is based on the evolution of the population we need to be. The world needs to improve productivity by 1.75% every year. What is happening is that it's 1.72. So that's why the gap between what we need and what's being produced tends to increase. And that's especially true in the low-income countries where currently productivity is around 1.5. Now, where can we get this additional productivity? Some people say, well, let's slash and burn and we'll just expand the fields and then we'll produce more. Well, that's not what this graph shows. Currently, the production is in this index is rated at 3. So if we were to focus on improving productivity is where we gain, which involves, among other things, better use or more use of, say, in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, we should use 6 to 8 times more fertilizer than what we use now. And the reason it's too expensive. Yet, if you look at the cost breakdown, what you find is that there is in terms of margins, tax, and port, not represent of the cost of the bags of fertilizer, typically speaking. So just through better policies, we improve, reduce, maybe not by half, but we can reduce significant cost. One think about, we more, but if we reduce the losses, we also make a big gain there. It's divided. The number you have here is the number of lost calories per person. The worst culprit there on per person per day a lot. In Africa, which is 1,000 calories per day per person. And we will eat the food needs. Paradox here, what you see in the countries and what you see in is what we see by 1990 to most that suffer chronically from hunger.
Yeah, Andre, actually, I think we have lost you. We cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's better. Yeah. Please continue.
I was just pointing out that there are only 2 countries in the world which managed to reduce while having obesity. These 2 countries are South Korea and Japan. So they're the only 2. So we have a long to be careful with this other side of the same coin. 5 recommendations. 1, implement mobile banking standard across operators. Mobile banking is a booming industry, and it's empowering people. It's creating jobs. When Kenya opened to mobile banking, for instance, 185,000 of the first jobs created were for business and trade. So it's really a driving force towards the infrastructure. Expand digital ID, especially for females. There's all kinds of social restrictions preventing them from forming the economy. So that's one thing. Policy and regulatory in Africa, only 39% of those who have smartphones. We also find that the demand for 4G in particular is a strong incentive for companies to invest. So we need to find a way to continue, as Michael did presentation, to find ways to reduce the cost of turn years in infrastructure, which we need to review regularly to see where we are, where are the weak points, the systemic approach. And finally, we need to touch on gender and man, you're twice as likely to have access to internet than if you're a woman in sub-Saharan Africa. So we need to do more research on this topic to bring all our sisters and mothers on board with us. So
awesome, Andre. That's a great representation of, like, how we can ensure that the farmers in Africa can leverage the data and ensure that, like, they are more successful. That brings me to, someone who is actually a practitioner of this technology on the ground. So we would like to understand, Milo, if you are there. I hope I can see you. Hello, Milo, are you there? In case you're speaking, you are on mute. Let me check. Yeah, Milo, can you hear me? Okay, so we'll jump to, someone who is being driving their majority of business from Africa. Venkat, welcome aboard. And as Andre was talking about value chains, so who best to go to understand, how the value chain can be digitized and can be traced and tracked. So Venkat, we would like to understand from you your current activities and your work in Africa. So floor is yours. Venkat, just a minute. Let me unmute you. You were on mute, it seems. Yeah. And now you're on mute. Yeah, please. Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon and in Africa, and I think good morning in US and good evening probably Asia. So thank you, Deepak, and thanks for hosting this wonderful event, and thanks for the opportunity. So yeah, when you say agriculture value chains, like we have developed a platform to digitize the agriculture. When you say agriculture, it is just you cannot take the farmers and growing. You always have to take the entire ecosystem or entire value chain, right from the inputs, seed and sowing, all the way to the consumer. So you need this entire ecosystem. One of the least digitized sector in the the agriculture and food is one of the least digitized sectors. So there's a lot of need for intervening digital technologies, need for many aspects, right from the, like I said, farm to commodity buyer, to input supplier, seed suppliers, to financial institutions, all the way to the commodity buyer and food processors and retailers and consumer. So we try to offer solutions throughout the value chain. There's a need for collecting data and also need for sharing this in a meaningful way, so that the entire value chain could be optimized or made remove inefficiencies and make the agriculture value chain ultimately sustainable. And one other important thing we also care about is make it equitable, right? Right now, talking about smallholder farmers, like in Africa, even the rest of Asia or rest of the world, an average smallholder farmer is holding 2 hectares and either illiterate to semi-literate. So when you are trying to bring these digital technologies to basically impact the entire value chain, how do you bring these technologies to this type of demographic or profile, right? And then another important thing is the infrastructure. Even though the internet has proliferated, the smartphones have proliferated, but still, I think if you really go to the farmers, the villages and the areas that you operate, the internet connection is a big challenge. So some of the things we have to work is, you have to work some type of one is there's neither scale nor sophistication to deal with this profile of the farmers. So you need to create scale as well as you need to create a sophistication. So the method we use, or philosophy we have, is to work through some intermediaries, like you have a farmer cooperative, or create some level of aggregation of these farmers, right, to create scale. And then you need create some sophistication to use some intermediate agencies, such as the cooperative farmer producer companies is one way. Also, you have a lot of agri businesses, small and big, and then there's government agencies. Government agencies also have a lot of footprint in operationally. They get involved in many aspects of agriculture in developing countries. Compared to developed countries, I mean, there's very little probably the governments do, but in developing economies, especially in Africa, the governments have to involve very, very deeply. And then the financial institutions and the commodity buyers. So we offer these solutions at each of the steps. So right from farm management to advisory services to certification is one important platform we have. We digitize the entire process of certification. We support 15 to 16 different certifications. Then we have market linkage. We have financial services. We manage supply chains. So these technologies have been deployed in Africa. We about more than 700 farmers in about 14 countries. And we have, like I said, right from farmer cooperatives to small and big agribusinesses, government agencies, as well as some input companies, financial institutions as our customers. So talking about one example, we work with one natural extract industries in Tanzania. This is vanilla farmers. They organize, they certify, they give loans, as well as do the processing, and then the extract is packaged into a small containers with a QR code. It goes out to the market. Similarly, we work with the government of Zimbabwe to digitize their entire market yards. Okay, they have 170 depots, physical market yards, and we have digitized the transactions, including digital payments. This is another thing in Africa, which is actually much advanced compared to the rest of the world, is in digital and mobile money. And we have solutions to offer digital payments to the farmers, which actually helps a lot. So I can talk more about our operations and case studies a little bit more, but that's what we've been doing.
Perfect. Awesome, Venkat. Great to know that you have been trying to connect all the dots. So that's awesome to understand. Milo, can you hear me now? In case, can you respond? Hello, Milo, can you hear me? Okay, so let's get to the the question. So Vanessa, in case you are there, I've got a question for you. Vanessa, in case you're talking, you're on mute. Okay, so let me go to Kunal then. Kunal, are you there? Hello, Kunal, can you hear me? I think we are having some network issues. So Venkat, we'll go to you. I hope you can hear me. So
Yes,
continuing
I can hear you.
continuing on the discussion. So when we talk about traceability, there are a couple of technologies which always come in your mind, right? We started with QR codes and RFIDs and all
Yeah.
that, and now like on the back end to make trust more decentralized. We also talk about blockchain. So what has been your experience in Africa in using some of these technologies, or some of the active case you can talk about?
Yeah. So thanks for asking that. Traceability is a very loaded word. Okay, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of ways. When I, started working about 8 years back in this space, traceability is all. If you're documenting, if you're using some good agricultural practices and you're certifying and you're documenting some practices, that is also called traceability. Okay, so there is some level of documenting your agriculture practices and be able to share with your end customers or the downstream value chain actors could be called traceability. But one thing more, I don't know. I still want to find a word for this. Is called a physical traceability. Okay, you have a or in front of you in some form, and then you have some kind of indicator there, a QR code, RFID, and you want to scan it and get some history about this information, right? It's more like a physical traceability. And this has been especially becoming popular and getting traction for two reasons. One is, if you're an exporter in Africa and you're exporting to especially Europe and US, stringent legal requirements to import food. So that is one of the drivers. And the second thing is, the brands are trying to ensure and market that there is a lot of supply chains. We are not proud of what kind of practices goes on, right? For example, cocoa is, everybody knows, notorious for deforestation and child labor. So how do you so the brands, there is a lot of increased pressure for consumers, advocacy groups, and the government to ensure practices, right? So in order to do that, the companies are going extra length to document their origin information, document the practices, and sharing that with their end audience and the public in some cases. So these are the reasons they're driving, and we have seen a number of customers adopting it. You talked about a blockchain, right? See, the traceability exists much forever, okay, in different forms. The blockchain is a new technology. Blockchain has a lot of potential. Some the characteristics of the blockchain of immutability and things like that. Traceability makes one of the good use cases, but again, it comes with cost. Okay, blockchain is not a panacea for traceability. People try to equate it, but if you have in a public domain or multiple players in the value chain, the blockchain as a really a good technology. But if you own the entire value chain by a single entity, it's very questionable what blockchain could offer. So we have mixed. We have done blockchain implementations. We have done traceability without blockchain for a long time. So that's where I want to leave it, Deepak.
That's great. I also fully agree that until and unless you are having very strong use case, right, just adding a technology is not going to help. And we are actually, in fact, on a scale of 10, we would be at 3 or 4 when it comes to traceability of food product, especially in developing world. And maybe in more evolved economies of America and Europe, that could be the transparency and I'll say that non-corruptibility of blockchain could be a value. But maybe in Africa, still I'll say that more needs to be done. Andre, we would like to understand from you, being a practitioner of trying to get different stakeholder add data and aggregate data. Do you see that sharing of the data and transparency of data being a challenge in taking agriculture forward?
Multiple levels, interoperability is the key in terms of developing more, if not standards, let's call them protocols, whether it is in more or use. Also the perception in many environments exposes you to some other researchers or from other institutions. A bit of a competition for funding, but I to make available. We spoke a lot about mobile phones in particular, very important. There are transmission that leads to, in terms of making the offer more adapted to the needs of the end user in a format, in a manner. That's why many of our, for example, use local languages as much as possible to this technology, which is becoming simpler and simpler, and available in a similar pace. Joint effort towards making them, because if you want to integrate from in terms of data as well, otherwise you're not compatible.
Cool.
Should have.
Perfect. So, Michael, that brings me to you. Like, we would like to understand a little bit about. We have always been talking about smartphone, trying to solve a lot of problems. While the access to smartphone is not a big challenge, but access to internet is still a big challenge. Not just in Africa, like it's even other part of the world. Because as soon as you have far more reliance on the data, and like typically when we get into those type of application which need broadband or like heavy uptake of the bandwidth, you suddenly start having challenges. So what is your view that actually, like can a feature phone also be as effective as a smartphone, or you feel that actually unless we don't have a smartphone, it would be challenged to deliver services to the farmers? Michael, let me unmute you. I think you're on mute. Yes. Yeah, Michael, please go ahead.
Yeah, so as far as a smartphone versus a feature phone discussion, you've got USSD codes. There are things that you can do on a feature phone, and it's not the end of the world. But ultimately, kind of the smartphone is the computer that you and I use in our developed world environment to be able to access the entire world. The smartphone is going to be that computer access for the people in the developing world. So I believe it's very important that we create the opportunity for people to have smartphones. And the smartphones, it's not easy for everybody to get because they're expensive. So you've got to work on how do you create financing programs for the phones so that they can become affordable. And the way we look at all of these problems is from a very high level, but a very holistic ecosystem perspective, because you've got the Broadband Commission of the United Nations, and they spend a fortune of time and money and with very little results to show for it, because their focus is that how do you get individual people to be able to pay enough money in order to be able to have broadband in order for the telcos to be able to bring it. We're looking at it from a different approach. We're not a government, we're not, but we believe that if we're able to go and bring great solutions to individuals, which will, can enable them to be able to do their full get a complete healthcare package on a phone, be able to do their full agriculture on a phone, be able to go and do their full financial inclusion access, e-commerce, everything on a phone. The programs behind that, meaning that it'll be worth our while to ensure that there is full coverage in these different areas, because we'll be making hopefully enough money on the healthcare and on the agricultural programs. So we're not looking to sell our applications to farmers for them to pay us. We're looking to provide them as a tool for the farmers to be able to transact. We'll make our money on the transactions. So our view is that we're not going to be able to just change everybody's habits and behaviors and be able to create and get the telcos to ensure that there's 100% coverage in every location day one. But as the program and the combination and the holistic ecosystem evolves, we believe that the telcos will follow quickly, or the government will ensure, or the national telcos will see the value from an empowerment perspective. But it's a different model. It's coming, it's coming from the people, from the community outwards, rather than kind of trying to impose it from the outside. I hope that makes sense.
No, 100%. In fact, and I fully agree with you, that telcos are going to play a very, very vital role in all these things, because end of the day, for them also to be able to ensure profitability of their operations, right? Now, the voice service cost is is as good as free, right? Data is already cannibalized, right? So you need to find ways and means where you are able to deliver value to your end user, and hence you are able to charge them. I saw a little bit of Kunal coming online. So Kunal, if you are able to hear me, I would like to have a question for you.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, perfect. So Kunal, actually,
Sure.
when we are working on different digital technologies, the challenge which we see as a practitioner is that actually scalability becomes a challenge, right? So how do you see, whether we need to customize a little bit more, or being a product company, how difficult or how easy it is to scale up the solution, or what are your views on that, and taking forward for Cropin to be more scalable and reach your goal of 20 million farmers in next 3 years?
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting question. That and for us, to have a larger vision of reaching 20 million farmers, the first and the foremost thing is institutions which can really have that scale of that many number of farmers. And when we see institutions, these are institutions like the government with millions of farmers. These are the telecom companies which are again touch basing tens of millions of farmers in different parts of Africa. Then there are a lot of developmental organizations, NGOs, cooperatives, and the private sectors, which are engaged with hundreds of thousands of farmers in these markets. And there are different value chains on different crops in different parts of Africa, right? So our focus and the core value proposition comes where we connect to these institutions and help them solve the problem that we are focusing with the farmers. So for a government institution which is talking about increasing the farmers' income and making them competitive in this ever-changing challenges that the farmer is facing, we are supporting them to help solve the cost problem, reducing the cost of cultivation and increasing the productivity. So and actually helping them to connect to markets. When you talk about financial institutions, and they also lend to 10 to 15% of the farmers in every country, right? So we're trying to reach out through these banks and institutions to help reduce their cost of financing to the farmers and making it much more operationally viable. So our vision is getting achieved through this set of larger institutions, and that I think that's the way forward. But the business model that we have is primarily where we have a cost which is shared by these institutions. But eventually, we have seen in a couple of our models that institutions, after 2 to 3 years, they pass on this cost model to the farmers. And since the value of the services is good enough, the farmer starts taking up that particular cost. And we then translate or put up some parts of the cost from the farmer as well as from the value chains that we interact with. So I think eventually a sustainable business model should be where the farmer really sees the value and he is able to pay for the solution that we're providing them. So I think that's the future that we are also aiming for.
Kunal, again, a continuation of the same thoughts. When you said telecom players, other than the telecom itself, there are also a lot of I'll say teleco size organization, right, which are actually part of communication. For example, WhatsApp, right? It is already connecting millions of farmers. Do you see any possibility where these platforms will also play a role in delivering services to the farmers?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Deepak?
Yeah, I can hear you, Kunal.
Hello. Yeah. So certainly, these are, for us, for us to reach to our end customers, and these are the set of for us, it's the farmers, right? So even we have seen that the uptake of WhatsApp and these digital tools has been very high. Right now, from 2016, where the WhatsApp penetration was around 15 to 16%, it has gone to around 35 to 40% currently, where smartphones and eventually is having WhatsApp for even the farmers. Services that WhatsApp is bringing, financial transactions, and bring in the services that we offer to build in a comprehensive suite of solutions for the farmers to really come and leverage that on through either our platform or the WhatsApp platform. So yeah, that's one of the strategies that we have, is partnering with different stakeholders and different institutions which are, I mean, not directly working with the farmers or the agriculture system, but having a technology which can layer on top of ours, and we then give a comprehensive solution.
Fair enough. No, actually, because I'll give you my experience, because very recently post COVID, we have seen that typically there is 30 to 40% increase in the adoption of WhatsApp in the rural community we were working with. I've seen higher adoption from all the way from Ghana, Ethiopia to Indonesia, where more farmers they are adopting WhatsApp. And even if you can see that WhatsApp is from a communication tool, it is trying to become a typically tool where actually you can use their APIs and leverage and provide from financial services to information services. So I see going forward a very, very critical role to be played by these type of platforms. And even in Africa, if you see that the Google and the Facebook are those who are investing heavily in actually the cables, internet, the submarine cables, right, rather than actually the telcos. So we are seeing that the telecommunication as well as the digital play as well as the top of it specialized service like EdTech are changing roles going forward. I would like to know, because we are having just a couple of minutes remaining, I would like to summarize that the takeaway from the discussion we had today is that one, it's very important that we focus more on connecting more farmers rather than just thinking about the technologies, the big names, blockchains and AI and MLs. Rather than that, actually reaching out to more and more farmers is important. Second thing is that you cannot just be part of trying to make money from the farmers by selling a service to them. You have to think about ecosystem, as Michael and Kunal were talking about, the leveraging different type of business model where the value chain player also play an active role in putting that money where actually some part of the services are paid up by the value chain rather than just the farmer. Third thing is that where Venkat talked about the traceability aspect of it. Traceability is a loaded word, but it's not just about ensuring the food safety, but it is also about making the trade fair, where actually you can use any sort of technology from simple RFID codes or say QR codes to going all the way to blockchain for a little bit those commodities which are having a high price. Andre talked about how it is very critical that we touch upon 4 or 5 specific point where gender equality to having more phones in the hands, as well as also ensuring that there is more multi-stakeholder partnership and standardization of data sharing, which will be helpful in making agriculture ecosystem more stable. Finally, I believe that Africa is opportunity, like $1 billion worth of opportunity for tech companies to play, and a couple of $1 trillion worth of food and agriculture industry going forward in the next few years. At the same time, Africa import a lot of food. It needs to be food self-sufficient, and only the way forward is ensuring that technology is able to increase not just the productivity but also profitability of the farmer, because Africa also happens, unfortunately, to be one of the youngest but poorest continent on the earth. So I would like to thank all my panelists for participating, and thanks a lot. We had insightful discussions. Thanks a lot, all of you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Deepak.
Take care.
Well run show.
God bless you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Sorry.